الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Brothers and sisters, it's your brother Imran Ibn Musa aka he's been wanting me to do this for a long time, so I'll do it for him. It's your brother Imran Ibn Musa aka Da'wah alongside Abu Abdul Aziz all the way from Jamia Malik Saud.
نعم.
And we have Yasin Mounier from Jeddah. Okay, actually,
I like that.
We should laugh.
I like that.
Yeah, you like that.
Is
Yeah?
it me or did we laugh too much?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because of the topic of discussion today,
Really?
it's actually about not laughing too much.
Ah.
Yeah,
start again,
sister.
Okay, go on.
Let's be real on it.
Yeah, let's just carry
Let's be
on.
real. Because this is deep. Because this, laughing's not fully bad. Basically, a sister emailed a message. She said, "Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to ask something. It may sound silly, but I wanted to know: is it true that the more you laugh in Islam, Islam says that the more you laugh, the more you cry. Meaning, if a person he enjoys himself a lot, he laughs a lot, he's gonna end up crying a lot. So that's not necessarily true, right? It's not necessarily true, but I did think that this opened a very, very interesting discussion on the topic of, the balance between laughing and crying, because we live in a day and age where people they laugh more than they cry. We all laugh more than we cry. We joke a lot. And there's nothing wrong with joking, but we don't cry as much as we're supposed to. So this is quite important because the Prophet ﷺ said, if you knew what I knew, you would laugh little and you would cry a lot. With regards to the horror.
I was about to say that, but it's okay. Sorry. No, I'm joking. Sorry, akhi, please cut that. Karen. Sorry, Karen. Nasser, cut that. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
The reason why this is important, brothers and sisters, is because the Prophet ﷺ said, if you knew what I knew, you would laugh very little and you would cry a lot. Why? Because you would know the punishments of the grave, the horrors of the grave, the horrors of the Day of Judgment, the horrors of the hellfire. But sadly, we are people who have become heedless. Our hearts have become hard. And life has just become one big game, it's become one big joke. So inshallah, I'm gonna, Akhi Yasin, you wanna take the floor on this one, inshallah? Set the pace.
ما شاء الله بارك الله شيخ ياسين. Imam al-Qahtani, he says in his poetry, "Nuni يوم القيامة لو علمت بهوله لفررت من أهل ومن أوطان يوم تشققت السماء لهوله وتشيب فيه مفارق الولدان." That on the day of resurrection, يوم القيامة, if you knew the horrors of the day of judgment, if you knew about the horrors of the judgment, you would have run away from your family. And on this day is the day when the sky will split because of its horrors, and that hair of the child's hair will turn grey. Like you said, the Prophet said, if you knew what I know, you would laugh little and you'd cry a lot more. Why? Because the Prophet in this hadith also means, as Ibn Hajar says, that if you knew the realities of the horrors of the Day of Judgment, if you knew the reality of the grave, if you knew the reality of Yawm al-Qiyamah, if you knew the reality of the Sirat, just all of this, you'd cry a lot more. If you just knew the reality of it.
Just to give an example, I'm just putting, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said at the beginning of Surah Al-Hajj, Allah said, "Ya ayyuhan nasu ittaqu rabbakum, inna zalzalata as-sa'ati shay'un 'azim." Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions, "O people, fear Allah, have taqwa of Him." Why? Because the earthquake on that day, the way that the earth is going to shake violently when the world ends, is going to be a mighty, mighty shaking. And Allah describes the situation of the people. Allah said, يَوْمَ تَرَوْنَهَا تَذْهَلُ كُلُّ مَرْضِعَةٍ عَمَّا أَرْضَعَتْ.
كل مرضعة.
كل مرضعة عَمَّا أَرْضَعَتْ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, every woman or everything, every animal who is pregnant, who is holding a baby, will actually, out of the fear, immediately they will have a miscarriage. That is the fear of that day. That literally you would drop your babies. Like you scared. The fear will be so much. Will just come out. A child, his hair will turn white.
You'd run away from your homes. You'd run away from your families.
From your homes and families. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned the state of the people. وَتَرَى النَّاسَ سُكَارَى. the people, the way you see them looking dazed, it'll be as if they're drunk. وَلَهُمْ بِسُكَارَ, but they're not drunk. Rather, Allah says, the punishment of your Lord is shadid, is severe. The reason why you see the people, the women losing their babies, the people walking around like this, it's not because they're drunk. It's because the punishment of Allah is severe on that day. So a person should spend a lot of time reflecting over his sins. Lamenting over the wrongs that he or she has done, that we have done. I should spend time pondering over my wrongs. It would truly prevent me from, forgetting the realities of that day. But the reality is that we don't think about ourselves. We don't think about ourselves. Subhanallah.
No.
The
way I would say is that, first of all, two ways I wanted to come for this is that, number one, laughing too much, obviously it does bring about heedlessness. Too much, laughing too much, it brings about heedlessness, and it brings about hardness of the heart. So one person laughs too much. But the way I want to tackle it is through the deen. People now, they're making the deen into a joke. They're laughing, and they're giving lectures, and they're giving talks and all that, and the whole thing is just jokes. And this is not something that's good. And there's one thing I benefited from Sheikh Badr al-Utaybi when he came to the UK. One thing I benefited from him is that he said that this deen is not a joke. Allah said to Yahya, Ya Yahya, khudh al-kitaba biquwwa. Or Yahya, the Prophet Yahya, take the book that I'm going to give you with strength. Meaning serious, be serious about this religion. This religion is not jokes. And to the point that these jokes can get a person to kufr, leave the person out of the fold of Islam. When a group of the people with the Sahaba who became hypocrites, they were going to Tabuk, and a battle with the Tabuk with the Prophet ﷺ, and they said about the companions, ما رأينا أرغب بطونا ولا أكذب ألسنة ولا أجبن عند اللقاء. I've never seen any people who are more liars. He's talking about the companions and the Prophet ﷺ. They're joking. They're saying, we ain't seen people who they like to fill their bellies and they lie about when they talk, and they're cowards when they meet the enemies
in the battlefield.
So what happened? One of the companions heard this and he said, Wallah, I'm going to tell the Prophet ﷺ what you said.
He said, you're a munafiq.
He said, you're a munafiq, and I'm going to tell the Prophet, you're a hypocrite, and I'm going to tell the Prophet ﷺ what you said. And he came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, the wahi, the revelation already came down before I could get to the Prophet ﷺ. And he said to him, the Quran said, وَلَإِنْ سَأَلْتَهُمْ لَيَقُولُنَّ إِنَّمَا كُنَّا نَخُوضُ وَنَلْعَبُ. If you ask them, these hypocrites, when they said, they're going to say, we're only joking and playing. قُلْ أَبِاللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ وَرَسُولِهِ كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. Say, what you're joking about Allah and His Messenger and His ayat, His verses, you're going to joke about that. لا تعتذروا, don't make any excuses. قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم. You have become kuffar after you had iman.
Subhanallah.
And Ibn Umar, he said, it's as if I can see this guy who made this joke holding on to the saddle of the Prophet ﷺ whilst he's on his camel, and the Prophet ﷺ is not even facing him, and this man is holding on and he's walking with the camel, dragging the camel, and he's buckling over the rocks. He's saying, Ibn Umar's like, I can see him right now doing that. And the Prophet ﷺ is not even looking at him, and he's saying, لا تعتذروا, he's looking straight, saying, لا تعتذروا قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم. Don't make any jokes, don't make any excuses, you have made kufr after you had iman.
SubhanAllah.
Look at that image. The Prophet ﷺ not even looking at this person because of the jokes that he's making. And this is the deen of Allah.
Some people say, I didn't mean it.
And they mean it.
Allah says, لا تعتذروا, don't make excuses. If the religion is a red line, you don't look. What Yasin is trying to say, already, joking is okay in its time and its place. Joking too much generally is wrong.
Yeah,
okay,
that's a question.
But this is now joking about a religion. That's kufr.
Or for example, some people, they might see a sister with a niqab, they say, look at this ninja.
Yeah.
Or for example, someone who has his thob high, they'll say, look at this Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Or he'll say, look, he's wearing his younger brother's clothes.
No, his younger brother's clothes. Or have you gone out of your clothes? Or they will say,
this is mocking the bait. Especially, it's mocking the sunnah of the Prophet to wear trousers above your ankles. It's mocking the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated for the women to dress.
Or you know how some people, they would do a show where they pretend they're praying and they're making fun. Or
so what I'm trying to say is that the people laughing, go back to the subject of laughing. When it comes to the religion, people need to start taking it seriously, man. When people are if you see a person, whatever he's talking about the religion, he's just joking all the time. All the time he's making jokes throughout the whole lecture. He's teaching a book, he's making jokes throughout the whole thing. This goes against the way of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, they used to say, when he used to sit with companions, فَكَأَنَّمَا عَلَى رُؤُوسِهِمُ الطَّيْرِ. It was as if they had birds on their heads. I mean, they wouldn't move. It was a serious majlis. One of my teachers, Sheikh Salih al-Usaymi, You know, when he this guy, the Sheikh Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, if you sit in his lessons, you see that you won't see anything moving. It's like Haiba and Jalala. There's like something majestic surrounding the majlis. No one's talking. No one's respect is respect. I mean, in Riyadh, remember I wasn't. You guys were there.
Yeah.
He left the whole place just because someone's phone went off.
I think the phone went off 3-4 times.
3-4 times.
I was there. It took us, subhanAllah, from my campus, Riyadh, from my campus to the masjid. Took us about half an hour.
And he left the lesson because of that. Because you have to respect the religion.
Because someone's phone kept ringing.
Yeah, exactly. So my point is, don't laugh too much about the religion, especially. Don't make jokes when lecturers. This to the lecturers. Don't be always joking when you're talking about the religion. The religion is something serious.
I want to mention something. There's an ayah that you forgot to mention. Allah says, "Inna sanulqi alayka qawlan thaqila." We're going to give you a heavy word. This religion is thaqil. You know, and you know this religion is from the symbols of Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, ذَلِكَ وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Whoever honors the symbol of Allah, it is from the piety of the heart. You know, so, you know, this knowledge should be taken seriously. You know, not making this knowledge as a joke. Obviously, I'll give you an example. If you share one joke, no problem. Yeah. 1 or 2 jokes, no problem. But your whole lecture,
jokes.
If people come to your talk just to laugh, no, there's a problem. But you know, there's no like to say 1 or 2 jokes, I mean, no problem. I'm not saying that, you know, make it, or I would say, you know, it's better not to make any jokes.
You know, Sufyan ibn Uyayna, he said, jokes in knowledge is like salt. I've been laughing. It's like salt. You don't put too much, you don't put too little, just in case people get bored. Yeah, like salt.
It's true, because back in the days, like, I used to joke too much. I remember I was invited to give a lecture at Birmingham University, yeah? And I used to joke a lot back in the days. I don't know if you guys know. I used to joke a lot, and they invited me. And one of the brothers from the ice hockey comes to me before I'm about to go on stage to address the people. He goes, "Listen, bro, go out there and make them laugh." I look at him and I said, "Bro, I'm not a comedian." He goes, he laughed. I said, "I'm not a comedian." He laughed. I was like, he touched me that day, man.
Wallah,
I was like, no, that's deep.
And if you do that, akhi, wallah, if you keep, you're going to be known as a joker.
Yeah, wallah, it's true.
No one's going to take it seriously.
It's true.
Like, you know, people, you know, even like, you know, when you do this, when you joke so much and, you know, akhi, someone might come to you, he might joke with you in an inappropriate way and you might not like it.
Yeah, it's true.
You might not like this joke. Why? Because you are the one who started this.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, you joke, or sometimes you might say an appropriate joke, and then someone comes to you with an inappropriate joke and you get offended by it.
It's true.
So you are the one who opened the door to it.
It's true.
I would say joking should be there with your close friends, with your family, with those that you know, but just...
Like, there's nothing wrong. Like, for example, like the Salaf al-Salihin, right? Some of them were known to have a good time. It was narrated, I think, Mawsu'at ibn Abi Dunya, there's some narrations that mention about Ibn Sirin there. And also in Al-Hilyat al-Awliya, right? By Abu Na'im, he mentions there that Ibn Sirin, rahimahullah, he was a student of the Sahaba. Muhammad ibn Sirin was a student of the Sahaba. And he was known to have a good time. He was known to, you know, laugh and joke a little bit. Lakin, when a hadith was narrated, it becomes serious. It's a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, religion we're talking about it now. In other words, he knew there was a time, he knew there was a place. See? But brothers, just to bring it back to
I just want to mention something.
Go on.
You know, also, you know, sometimes some people, what they do is they mock the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like I remember there was a person, may Allah forgive him and guide him, and he says, I don't take all Sahih hadith. And you know the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whoever has 7 dates of ajwa, he will not be affected by poison, nor by magic. He said, what kind of ridiculous hadith is this? It goes against logic, and he says that if I go drink rat poison right now, would that protect me? You know what I mean? So like, a'udhu billah, just pure istihza of the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, so just because your small intellect doesn't understand this hadith, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the hadith. Because some people, they will give preference for the aql over the naql. They will give preference to the brain, to the intellect, and not to the text. So if it doesn't make sense to me, I'm not going to take from it, and that's dangerous. تفضل حبيبي.
Now, you know, what's the ayah in Surah Al-Hujurat? Also, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا
يسخر قوم من قوم.
No, before لا يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين
يدي الله ورسوله.
No, the second ayah.
إن الذين يغضون أصواتهم.
No, the ayah before يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين يدي
الله ورسوله واتقوا الله إن الله
لا ترفعوا أصواتكم
لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول كجهر بعضكم لبعض أن تحبط أعمالكم وأنتم لا تشعرون. Allah mentions that just by raising your voice above the voice of the Messenger ﷺ, you can become a disbeliever and not even know it. وأنتم لا تشعرون. This is an evidence to show that you may not even realize, you may not even feel that you fell into kufr, all your deeds became nullified just by raising your voice above the Messenger. Now imagine mocking the Messenger ﷺ sunnahs. But coming back to the point the sister mentioned about the issue of not laughing too much, bringing it back to more of a bit more of a spiritual angle. I think we should end on that, like as in, guys, just remember to cry, remember to ponder over your sins. The Prophet ﷺ said there are two eyes that will not see the hellfire: the eyes of the person who stood at the borders of the Muslim land protecting it from the enemy, and the eyes that used to cry, over the fear of Allah Azza wa Jal. That eye will be saved from the hellfire. Brothers and sisters, the Prophet ﷺ said Allah will not combine two fears in a person. It will not be that you are scared in this life that you'll be scared in the next life as well. Either you'll be scared here and be happy there, or you'll be happy here and there's a big chance that you could be scared there. Not to say that everyone who has a good time in his life ends up in Jahannam, but just generally speaking, as a general principle,
you need to have that fear.
You have to have
the foundational fear.
You have to have that fear. Be like the Sahaba, reflect over the ayat of Allah, that this will cause you to cry. The ayah, Ibn Umar read it from Surah Al-Mutaffifin, يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. On that day, he read this ayah all night, just crying. The ayah, what does it say? يَوْمَ يَقُومُ النَّاسُ لِرَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ. On that day, when the people will be standing before their Lord. Just that ayah, the fact that they'll be standing before their Lord, reciting this ayah again and again and again, was enough for him to be crying all night. There were some men from the Salaf who died just by reciting certain verses. Was the ayah from Surah Al-Zukhruf, وَبَدَالَهُمْ سَيِّئَاتٍ
وَبَدَالَهُم مِّنَ اللَّهِ مَا لَمْ يَكُونُوا يَحْتَسِبُونَ وَبَدَالَهُم سَيِّئَاتُ مَا كَسَبُوا وَحَاقَ بِهِم مَّا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ.
Not that ayah exactly, but Allah mentions, no, I think it's Surah Al-Zukhruf. Allah mentions that it will become apparent to them. I'll put it in the description below, I'll find that. Allah mentions it will become apparent to them the sin that they did.
وبدالهم من الله ما لم يكن بدالهم سيئات ما عملوا.
Yeah, that's it. بدالهم سيئات ما عملوا. It will become apparent to them the sins and the evil they used to do. Allah will make it apparent to you on the Day of Judgment. The zina that you did, the way you disrespected your mom, the pornography that you watched, when you masturbated, the backbiting. All of it will become apparent to us on the Day of Judgment. All of it will become apparent. And out of the fear that knowing that this is all going to be brought back in front of Allah Azza wa Jalla on the Day of Judgment, some of the Imams, one of them, he died. In the Salah, when the Imam read it, he died out of the shock. Imam Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah mentions the story of a man from the Salaf, who was the three righteous generations, that he used to always cry profusely. And a man asked him, he said, why do you cry so much? And the reason he said, I cry, is if Allah threatened to throw me inside of a toilet for eternity, I would cry. What about if Allah threatened to throw me inside the hellfire for all of eternity? Should I not cry? Then the man asked him, he said, do you cry like this often? Is it just like random, or is this like regular for you to cry like this? Because he was crying too much. And he said, yes. He said, because this type of crying hits me every time I'm about to eat food and I can't eat food. This type of crying hits me every time I'm about to go sleep and I can't sleep. The fear of Allah and the Day of Judgment and the hellfire, it keeps me awake. He said, when I'm about to have intimacy with my wife, a time when no one's caring about the akhirah. People don't think about Allah, when it comes to intimacy. Even though you should do the dhikr before you do it, But generally speaking, that's a time where your desires have overtaken you, right? Even that time, he said, I'm about to enter my wife. I become overcome with fear and I cry to the point where my wife, she looks at me and she says, woe to us, we have not enjoyed a single moment with you, me and the kids, because of your excessive crying. And no one's saying that you have to cry like that, but the point is that at least cry to a sufficient degree. Allah Azza wa Jal, at the end of the day, we're not here to have fun, to laugh and joke, we're here to worship. Allah said to the Quraysh, and just generally speaking, all of us, at the end of Surah Al-Najm, Allah said, أَفَمِنْ هَذَا الْحَدِيثِ تَعْجَبُونَ وَتَضْحَكُونَ وَلَا تَبْكُونَ. Allah said, you laugh a lot, you laugh, but you don't cry. وَأَنْتُمْ سَامِدُونَ. And what is it that you're not doing in the absence of crying? Rather, you're singing, you're dancing. Samidun, Ibn Abbas said, in the dialect of Himyar, this means singing, music. And this is a proof to show that music is haram, okay? You're not laughing, you're not crying. You're laughing, and what antum samidun? You're singing, you're dancing, you're joking, you're raving, you listen to music. Rather, Allah said, "Fasjudu make sajda to Allah. وَلِلَّهِ وَاعْبُدُوا, and to Allah worship. To Allah worship alone. Inshallah.
I want to conclude with this.
تفضل أخي.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَوَرَبِّكَ لَنَسْأَلَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ عَمَّا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. We're going to question all of them. About Quraysh, we're going to what they used to do. So Allah is going to question us. Yeah, that's about it.
You're going to be asked.
You're going to be asked, you know. And Ibn al-Qahtani says, Imam al-Qahtani says, يا حبذا عيناني في غسق الدجى من خشية الرحمن باكيتان. How beloved are these two eyes in the darkness of the night? They are crying out of the fear of Allah Azza wa Jalla.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin.
بارك الله فيكم.